thank the Department of Sociology, Education and Sociology. Education, Department of Education, and also Sociology, Social Science, Social Science, and the Teachers Association, and all the teachers who came here today. I thank you so much for organizing this wonderful workshop, and I feel so honored to be here. And I've been enjoying Professor Stefan Epstein's talk so much, and I wanted to just discuss on and on and on, but this is my time. But I have quite a few things that can be extended to from what Professor Epstein talked about, especially gender issues. So hopefully you will interact freely during the talk. So hopefully, I think if you have any questions, we're going to have Q&A, but if you have any questions or comments during my talk, then you can just raise your hand and engage with me and other audiences as well. So, yeah, I have a clicker, right? Okay. Why gender? I thought it was a really interesting topic to be suggested to me, and my research focuses on literature, but I also touch on gender issue a lot, either in literature or popular culture. And even when Professor Epstein was talking about popular culture, I couldn't really think about all those things without thinking about the gender issue. And why gender? Why should we consider gender when we teach about Korean history? I don't think it's just about Korean history or Korean culture. It applies to any society, any culture as well. We have to be aware of gender issue. Because with the gender, we can see how this hegemonic construction of gender roles, gender relations, sexuality, sexual differences, gender discrimination form. And we would like to be more aware of gender because I'm sure that a lot of you feel that too. I feel that regarding Korean society as well, that we would like to work towards a more equal, gender equal society. And this is a very important too, that we are looking at gender as a gateway to make society more equal, but at the same time, gender is a very important category of historical analysis. And very often through analyzing gender, we understand how this formation of femininity, masculinity, and the crisis of masculinity or femininity are constructed. So this is a very important way of getting into the construction of a lot of social discourses. And it is very important to understand social, cultural, political context of a specific society. Today we're going to talk about Korea. And in order to understand gender issues, we're going to have to know about specific circumstances which Korea has been put under historically, politically, and economically. And same goes with the society as well. And I will try to make some connections between Korea and the Philippines. But if you have more thoughts and opinions about this issue, please join the discussion and so on. I think I got, okay, I'll start with this. Do you recognize them?
Yes.
Who is the first one? Marco. Okay, younger generation. Okay. Second one. Gongyu. The Goblin.
Yeah.
Did you watch The Goblin?
Yes.
Did you like it?
Yes.
How about the third one?
태양의 호예.
The song couple.
Song Song
Yes.
Couple.
Yes.
They just got married, right?
Yes.
I'm like, who knew what was happening with them? Right? They were really dating. Right? So all those men, they are really, really happy. Do you like them? Good men? I'm not asking you about women, but those male actors. Hakbogum. Why do you think that people like Hakbogum? Why do you like Hakbogum?
She's so handsome.
Handsome. Okay, handsome. I think that they're all handsome. What else?
Neat looking. Very neat looking.
Neat looking.
Yes.
Neat looking.
He looks like
Very
Manly.
manly. Oh, what is with the frog?
Sexy.
How about the second one, Goblin?
Sexy.
You know a lot. The second one, he appears whenever you want him to. That's what Goblin is about, no? Whenever there's a female protagonist wants to see him, he just appears before her, right? The third one, Song Joong-ki, he will tie shoelaces for his girlfriend in the middle of terrorist attack, right? And these are the type of images the Korean TV dramas are making. And what kind of men women like? They are short, handsome, kind, warm, and what else? Gentle, boyish. I don't know about the Goblin because he's much older than the female protagonist. He looks boyish. Okay. So those are kind of qualities that women tend to like or fantasize about. The reason why I showed you this is that whenever my students talk about a similar observation about these male actors, and I tell them, "꿈깨." They are looking for meeting this type of man. I'm like, it's a dream, okay? So the reality is quite different. So it's not realistic to tell you. I'm not saying that there are no men such as this man exist. I'm sure there are somewhere. I don't see them. They are hidden. But what I'm trying to say is that these are the images what women would like to see, women like to fantasize about. And why is that? Why not manly man, macho man? How many of you can read Korean? How many, I'm just wondering, are books translated into English? Do you read books in English or Tagalog or English, right? I don't think this book has been translated yet. But this is one of the best sellers for many weeks in South Korea. And this tells you exactly why men like Hakbogum, Gongyu, and Song Joong-ki are popular, because those images really tell you what women are lacking in real life. And this fiction, although it doesn't have literary value, in my opinion, tells you how realistically it depicts women's lives in South Korea. I'm not talking about North Korea here, South Korea, okay? So this bestseller deals with a woman whose name is Jhooyeon Kim. Jhooyeon Kim. Kim is very common family name, right? Do you know? Kim, Lee,
Yeah.
Chang, Park, right? Jhooyeon is a very common name among women in their 30s. For some reason, Jhooyeon was the most popular name. So it's a kind of common name. And she has a college degree. She didn't go to first class university or second tier university. Got a job, but again, when she got married, she had to think about whether she could continue her career or not. She continued her career until she was pregnant. And when she was pregnant, she decided to quit the job because it is really, really challenging for women to come back to their job after giving birth. I don't know what it's like here. Is it like that in the Philippines? Is it hard to come back to your job?
No.
You can come back.
Yes.
Yeah. It's encouraged by the government for women to come back, and employers should embrace them when they come back. But again, in reality, it doesn't really happen in South Korea. So a lot of women, despite the fact that they obtain higher education, despite the fact that they were having, the job they like, not many women can come back. And I'm getting to that later, in detail why that is. So she doesn't have a job. She lost a job. In replace, she got a daughter. And one day she broke down. She doesn't remember who she is herself. She only remembers in the eyes of the others. So she starts talking from the perspective of her mother, the perspective of her friend, female friend, and so on. So this is kind of a good storytelling about a woman in her 30s who is married with a child, right? So I think that this book really tells you, what the problems are in South Korea. So, why doesn't really show? I don't know. Okay, here it is. Then let's take a look at employment rate and unequal pay and so on. Korean people like to talk about Korea within this OECD context. You know this, right? In the OECD index, Korea comes first in many bad categories. comes to the bottom with some of the categories, such as employment rate. So you can see that 50%, almost 50% of women who are eligible to work are employed in South Korea, whereas 71.1% of men are employed. And the graph on your right side shows how much women get paid in comparison to men. They get 68% of pay of what men get paid. Right? And I guess there is also a wage gap here between men and women in the Philippines. Is that right? No wage gap? I guess it depends on what kind of job, right? Teachers, maybe not. But if you are thinking about other kind of jobs, is there a wage gap? Serious enough so that people are talking about it? Not really. Good for you. So this is one of the serious problems Korean society has. Childcare. As I briefly talked about this life of Jhooyeon Kim, these days parents do not look after children. Even if they do, they will get paid. It is expected. It is expected that they're not going to do for free. Overall, I'm sure there are still people who parents who still provide this kind of a child rearing service for children, but more and more your older generation do not want to be burdened by child rearing these days. My mom, for example, she's done with it after looking after my two nieces. And my brother was quite angry because, wait a second, you look after the, Nuna's children, but not mine, and so on. But anyway, this is happening. And in order to hire a nanny, it has been quite expensive. Right? And a lot of women told me that in order to, whether the kind of a payment they pay for a nanny would almost equal the amount of money they make. So it's better for them to stay at home rather than hiring. And I hope you don't understand that this is only a Korean problem, because I see this problem in many other countries too. In Canada, you think that childcare system is great, but again, same thing. It's extremely difficult to hire a nanny. So a lot of women quit their job. So these days, in order for men to take the responsibility of childcare, there are some shows called 어디가 아빠 어디가, and these shows how Korean men, fathers, can look after children or learning how to look after children. And there are also father schools. Father schools teach Korean fathers to be good fathers as well, right? So these things are happening, but I think that this is a media promotion of men's involvement in housework, child rearing, reality, everything. That most things fall on the shoulders of women. Family conflicts, I'm sure that you saw in many TV dramas, daughter-in-laws and mother-in-laws, they are enemies.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, lagi naman.
You really agree quite strongly. Right? What is the recent drama where you saw this kind of conflict? Do you remember? Do you think this is a Korea specific issue? No? Is it like that here as well? Yeah? Why is that? Why? You can hear about brother-in-law, son-in-law and mother-in-law in conflict so much. Do you? Rather you hear more about, or you experience, I hope you don't, but experience mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts. Why is that?
They compete for the son's attention, or the son's was supposed to be a mother would expect a son to support him, to support her, but he got married, and so definitely the son will now have to support the wife, and so there would now be jealousy on the part of the
Jealousy.
and the daughter-in-law, considering that she lost the support of the son, or a less support by the son. Something like that, probably one of the factors.
Wow. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that the reason you think? That's usually what people say, right? Jealousy, sure.
Because Korea is traditionally, for example, in Korea, it's traditionally a Confucian society. So there are expected roles for daughters-in-law. So if the mothers-in-law think that their daughters-in-law do not do good or do not meet their expectation, they like argue or more than that actually, but they have this very serious conflict.
Tradition. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. What else?
What about you? You get along with your mother?
I'll tell you in the future. Once I have mother-in-law. I'm studying about how not to have conflict. I prepare myself. I tell you. Yeah, so this conflict is serious enough. Yeah, tradition is a big thing. Jealousy is also a big thing too. And a lot of the media emphasizes, this divorce rate goes up around the time when Korea has a traditional holiday, like Chuseok, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Day. So the stress level goes up, and there will be fights and divorce, right? So that's what media always talks about. So this kind of conflict has, historical and cultural reasons as well. Gender equality index is one of the lowest among the OECD countries, right? And usually Korea and Japan compete for the last, right? Women in Japan, they are really unhappy as well, according to the index, okay? In terms of gender inequality. And unequal job opportunities. Again, the government tries to ensure the equal employment opportunity these days. And the media often talk about, well, almost 50% of teachers are female, or 50% of those who became diplomats, who passed the diplomat exam, they are women, which is true. This year, more women, I hear. But again, when you actually look into managerial positions or higher positions, then the number of women really, really small, right? And the aging population, people over 65-year-old, consists of 13.8%, and it will be 50% by 2045, the year 2045, if the fertility rate continues as it is now. What is it? 1.2%. In order for a society to maintain the population, current population, you need 1.38 or 36, no? 1.886.
Well, replacement is 1.13.
Really? In order to maintain.
Although what you're asking is slightly different question. Yeah, I'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
To replace the two parents, you need a little bit more.
A little more.
But
That's.
maintaining the population level.
You're right. So there are two things here. There are different things. So anyway, the population is decreasing. Younger population, 1.2%. This is really, really low. And this somehow is turning into gender equality issue as well. And the government seems to promote the fertility rate among women, but again, women do not take it quite right. And depending on how the government is using that kind of logic, but again, they will not say that politicians, for example, unlike Japan, some politicians will say that, well, women are here to generate, produce babies. They will say that. Politicians will do that in Japan, but in Korea, they're not going to say this. But I'm sure that in the back of their minds, this is something going on behind this, promotion of women having children and supporting childbearing and so on. But again, this is not really about the population itself. It's also about the class issue in Korea. There's so much class division in South Korea. Sure, you make children, you produce 5 children, 6 children. Sure, you have big family, then what? Can you support them? Can you support them well enough so that they can be economically successful and socially successful? Maybe not. In Korea, it is extremely difficult to support children. So if anyone says, oh, I have 2 children, oh, you're rich. People say you're rich. If you have 3 children, people will say you're really rich. Because raising more children takes a lot of money. And the Korean society, unfortunately, is becoming very going towards the extreme, in a sense that the division between the poor and the rich is really clear. It's clearer, and the gap is bigger. So this is another concern. There's also racial discrimination. When you talk about gender issue, in Professor Epstein talked briefly about Jasmine Lee. Jasmine Lee is a good case study when we talk about the migrant wives in Korea, and not just the migrant wives or women from ethnic Koreans too, from China, right? Who came to Korea, South Korea for work or for marriage and so on. There's a racial dimension in gender issues as well. So those are the things that I would love to talk about in details. So these are just the statistics, and see, very similar to what I talked about in the beginning about this Jhooyeon Kim, born in 1982. Now, as I briefly talked about in the beginning, in order for you, or in order for us to understand certain society, especially gender issues, gender equality, we are working towards gender equality, doesn't really give solutions. We need to understand the society in specific. And I know that Professor John Duncan is going to talk about Korean history on Monday, right? And I'm sure that he will give you a more comprehensive view on Korean history. I will just focus more on women's history briefly. I'm not going to spend too much time with that because someone talked about tradition, and there's a tendency, I'm telling you right now, there's a tendency among students of Korean studies to blame everything on Confucianism. Whenever there is a social issue, oh, it's a Confucianism. Oh, that's also Confucianism. When it comes down to economic development, yeah, it is a Confucianism. The Confucian ethics and so on. It's not always the case. It's not always the case. I want you to be aware when you teach about Korea that sure, like China, and to some extent like Japan, Korea was and still is to some extent Confucian society, but it's not that Confucianism can be blamed for a lot of big issues. Very often that the modern development and that modern development itself has become a source of a lot of social issues right now. So that's what I wanted to tell you. It's not just about the Confucianism. I want you to think twice about whether gender issue really has to do with Confucian tradition. Part of it, but there's some other reasons as well. So I cannot cover the ancient history, but when it comes down to gender, we often compare Goryeo dynasty and Joseon dynasty. Joseon dynasty existed right before Korea was colonized. Do you know Korea was colonized by Japan? Did you know that? Yeah, good, yeah. And then there are a lot of Korean dramas about colonization as well, right? And of course you know about Joseon because you all watched 대장금, right? And some of the saga with the 박보검, right? So this is a Joseon period. It existed 500 years. Before Joseon period, there was a Goryeo dynasty. And in Goryeo dynasty, women had relatively more freedom, such as they could interact freely with men outside the household. When you see dramas with a Joseon background, women always wear veil, right? Veil when they go outside. Are you familiar with this? No? Next time when you watch Korean TV drama, watch the drama carefully. Usually, women from elite household, when they go out, they will not go out alone. And even when they go out, they wear veil, right? So, but again, in Korea, it was women were more free to go out. Does it mean that women could sit in exam, state exam? Not really. Only men could sit in a state exam. And a groom lives with his bride's family until children were born and raised. And men and women could divorce freely. This would change significantly in Joseon period. Women's remarriage was socially accepted and practiced widely. This would change again dramatically in Joseon. Women were entitled to receive inheritance equally. But again, women will lose this in Joseon period. So you may think, wait a second, women could enjoy all this kind of freedom, and what happened? You know, they lose everything all at the same time. Again, I want you to think about this class issue too. I am mainly talking about women in elite houses. I'm not talking about women, the commoner women, or women you see in TV dramas such as peasants and giseng. You know what giseng means? Did you hear about this? You're not familiar with this? I'll talk about it a little later. But I'm not talking about working women. Women worked. Women worked all the time. During the Joseon period or during the Korea period, right? So I'm mainly talking about practice, the actual practice done among women in elite households. Then, when Joseon was established, Neo-Confucianism was state ruling philosophy, and the Confucianism aims social harmony. This is the ultimate goal. In order to maintain social harmony, one should know his or her place in the society. Hierarchy I'm also talking about. And in Confucianism, the 5 human relationships are very, very important. Ruler, subject, father, son, husband, wife, older, younger brother, friends, and so on. In Korean TV drama, I'm sure you hear a lot of 언니.
Yes.
언니?
Yes.
네.
Do you have something equivalent like that here?
ate.
Ate.
So you call Aten.
Older sister.
So 언니 has more responsibility?
Yes.
Yes. 오빠.
Yes.
오빠.
Kuya.
So oppa has more responsibility.
Yes.
So you have one 언니, one oppa. Who has more responsibility? Oppa? Oppa? Eldest. Oppa? Who has more privilege then? Oppa? 언니. Oppa?
It depends.
Okay. So there are some similarities then. We'll talk about this a little later because I'm going to talk about oppa. So, and the oppa 언니 and 선배. 선배? 후배, 선배? Have you heard of 선배? Senior, someone senior to you? In colleges or in companies? 선배? Few years older than you usually will have right to tell you what to do, what went wrong with your performance and so on. I had many experiences with a 선배, some good, some bad, right? When I was working at a company, if I do not wear properly, or properly, but my 선배 doesn't like the way I dress, then they call me in the morning, right? 선배 gives me a call and tells me, see you in the washroom. What does that mean?
You're in trouble.
I'm in trouble. So during the lunch hour, I go to the washroom, and that's the thing, we beaten by the 선배, right? So 선배 has enormous power. In Korean society, someone who's older than you, they have power. These days things are changing, right? Because you're older, you cannot really tell younger people what to do. It's a dangerous society now, so I don't recommend you to do that anymore, right? So, but again, still, it is expected that the people are older than you, they have more power than you. And in Joseon society, husbands can divorce women. If the women were sick, that's not fair. If the women were having an affair, and unfilial, and talkative. If women talk too much, there could be a reason for men to divorce. So I remember when I was growing up, I was told by relatives who are much older than I was, telling me, you talk too much, your husband will divorce you in the future, right? And I used to hear that a lot. And so, not anymore, but in TV drama, you see that too. I used to see this kind of line that, if women talk too much, there's a sign of, destruction in the family and so on, all the bad things. So, but again, I'm telling you that from the beginning of Joseon, sure, these were kind of rules imposed on women, but again, those women who follow these kind of rules, or families, more like families follow these rules, were ruling class, right, or high class. And this notion, it took some time for this notion to be spread among commoners later on. I think I'm gonna skip this part mostly because I'm sure that it's going to be dealt with the Joseon society by Professor John Duncan, but I was asked to provide some sources so that you can refer to later if you needed to. And if you're wondering about Joseon society, especially on gender relations, Martin Duclerc's The Confucian Transformation of Korea is a really good book, especially the last chapter concentrates on gender issues. So this is a good book for you to refer to. And I was talking about Daesanggeum. This is Lee Young-ae in Daesanggeum. I think it was popular here. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Did you watch this? Jhooyeon in the Palace.
Yes.
Why did you like it?
History of cooking. This is
Cooking. Cooking is interesting.
Yes.
But she becomes a doctor later.
Yes.
What else?
Strong fashion.
Strong,
Fashion.
passionate woman. Sure. What else?
We love to see oil.
Yes.
Loyalty.
Royal.
Royalty.
The history.
The history of a royal palace and the court and so on. What else? I guess it was more popular in China than in Southeast Asia. Am I right? Or
Yes.
Iran, Hong Kong and Iran. Yeah. I think this was also very, very popular in Korea. Part of the big reasons is that we rarely see heroes and heroines in Joseon society. And she's a fictional character, but she could live with passion, right? And she could show that kind of passion. Passion manifest in cooking and her medical career later on, right? this was a fascinating character. Were there women like her? Maybe. But not many women had that kind of life. But especially women in the palace, they had a lot of restrictions. A lot of restrictions. But again, there were professional women. And I briefly mentioned Kisen, which can be translated into courtesan. Right? Courtesan. But in Joseon, Kisen doesn't mean just a courtesan. They included some women who involved in medicinal work, some women who involved in the weaving and so on, and some women in cooking as well. So there were some women who were working. But again, when it comes down to commoners, peasants, they worked. They had to work in the field, right? And do the housework as well, right? So there were some women who were working, and it's not that women in Joseon period, they were not allowed to go out, they were not allowed to work, they were allowed to follow the family rule and so on, right? Oops, going backwards. And Korean shamanism, I believe most of you are Catholic. So I'm warning you that this may not be a comfortable topic to discuss. But again, please take it as a traditional culture of Korea. Shamanism takes a really, really important culture in Joseon, Korea especially. And there are many reasons for that. Shamanism was supported by communities, especially communities of women. And many shamans were women as well, right? So besides the religious reason, which means that women go or men go to shamans whenever they have problems, whenever they have illness, they ask shamans to solve the issue. And the shamans will perform ritual so that illness can be cured and so on, right? So shamanism, although it was disdained by ruling class in Joseon, it is still disdained by people in modern Korea. And you will see a video clip shortly. What I mean by that. Shamanism played a really, really important role in Korean society, especially in Joseon, when women had few places to go outside the house, right? And this talk about their own problems and show their desires and wishes, right? So in a way, going to a shaman or practicing shamanism was a way to release their social anxiety as well. Okay? So are there shamans in Korea? Yes, there are. Mostly women. And it is really difficult for ordinary people to commit that they practice shamanism. Or if you ask a specific question to Koreans, do you go to shamans? They'll never say yes. But I'm sure many people have experienced going there. Right. And so this is a very brief introduction of shamanism, but I would like to show you a short clip about this shaman, famous shaman, who became a cultural heritage, national cultural heritage in Korea, not for curing illness, but for preserving traditional performance. Now her name is Kim. Sorry, I'm so name. Help me here, my colleagues. I can't believe I forgot. Anyway, you have questions about yeah? Pardon? Yeah. So she is one of the most famous shamans in South Korea. And I don't think you can find shamans in North Korea at all, but this documentary focuses on kind of dying tradition. This shamanist ritual as a tradition and so on. But she's also she's a hereditary. There are the two kinds of shamans. There are hereditary shamans and charismatic shamans. She's both. So charismatic shaman means that you just live a normal life, and one day you're possessed by the gods and you become shamans. So what shamans do? Shamans connect human world and the dead, right? The spirit. So sometimes shamans can bring the spirit to you so that you can communicate with that spirit. Cool, right? So this is what shamans do. And this tradition, although this documentary shows that the tradition is dying, and I do not think that this tradition will disappear anytime soon. And there are a lot of, for interesting reasons, number of reasons, many shamans are women. It will be really difficult to find male shamans in South Korea. And if you're interested in shamanism and the women, Laura Kendall has been writing a lot about Korean shamanism. So I strongly recommend that you read her numerous books as well. Now, do you remember I told you that we have to be careful about the Confucianism as the cause for lots of social problems? And I think it has to do with more with this opening of traditional society to the West. This is the time when, as far as the gender matter is concerned, a lot of problems were made. And I'm talking about at the turn of the 20th century, when Joseon society began to contact with the West, right? And then later on, Korea, Joseon again was colonized by Japan, right? So what does it mean? The colonization means that sure, Korea was colonized and Korea was under control of Japanese. It goes more than that, right? Korea was able to Korea was exposed to different thoughts and practices from the West via Japan. And one of the important changes made as far as women's life was concerned was the beginning of modern education for women. Women in traditional Confucian society, according to Neo-Confucian practices, women were not allowed, not encouraged to learn. But when missionaries, Western missionaries, Canadians, British, when they came to Korea at the turn of the 20th century, they started teaching Koreans about the importance of women's education. They established a women's school such as Iwa Hakdang. Do you know Iwa University, Women's University? So one of those universities in Seoul. Yes, it was the first women's school at the time. And another important thing that changed the course of life of women is the foundation of nation and all the nation building ideology at the time when external force was strengthening Korean society, Korean intellectuals, began to develop the idea about what nation should be, right? In order for nation to sustain, keeping tradition, and develop and compete with the West, men and women had to be assigned their new roles, right? And at the time, everybody was encouraged to learn. But what is the purpose of the learning for women? It always came down to becoming wise mothers and good wives. Have you heard about this ideology? Yeah, some of you are familiar with it. What is it?
In essence, it's about women. Women are trained to be good mothers and good wives.
What does it mean by being good mothers?
You seem to give yourself and sacrifice yourself for the sake of the children and the husband.
You get college degree just to do that?
But even if you have college degrees in Korea, you stop working just to take care of the family.
Take care of the family, yeah. Take care of the children, wise mothers. You become wise mothers. You learn, right? You learn knowledge to become wise mothers. Why? Your knowledge will be used for childbearing so that the children will become national subjects, patriotic subjects. You make your children patriotic subjects for the nation. That's why mothers' roles were very, very important. You know, those intellectuals emphasize gender equality, women's education, not because women have right to do so. It's because women have responsibility to produce national subjects. If I emphasize this in public, I'll be blamed so much. But when I was growing up, when teachers asked female students what they want to be when they grow up, it was quite common. The students answered that they want to be wise mother and good wife. We really believe that there was a job. It's a job. I'm not saying it's not a job, but we believe it was a career, which is really, really serious, right? And that's a good wife, and that's a wise mother. Good wife. Good wife supports husband at home. And if the husband is not available to produce economically, she, with her knowledge, she can also produce as well. And supporting the husband is the most important role she's supposed to do. So this became a state ideology, right? And does it mean that this kind of ideology didn't exist in Joseon? In Joseon, wise mother was emphasized, right? But the term 양처 itself didn't mean that really good wife. It was just the commoner's wife, literally meaning, right? 양처 means just a young meaning 처. It's not 좋은 처, right? So it is a modern ideology which was formed in Japan first, and it went to Korea. And it became such a dominant ideology that influenced the lives of women, I would say until the late 80s as well. But now, if anyone emphasizes this as a role of women, then some will be criticized heavily. So this has been the ideology that tend to suppress women in many sectors of their lives as well, right? So this is what I meant by it's not just the Confucianism, it's about the nation building process and the nationalism which brings women into the nation building process, right? By giving them this title, right? Wise mothers and good wives, where women were naturally asked to sacrifice themselves for families instead of for themselves. And I would say this is one of the big reasons why Korean society became so patriarchal, right? Besides the militarization, it's quite a patriarchal society. And if you are curious about the history of women's lives, these are the sources that will help you tremendously about how women in Korea and how women in Joseon and modern Korea lived, and what kind of things they practice over time as well. And some of the models women were supposed to follow were these women. The first woman was Joan of Arc. Are you familiar with Joan of Arc? Joan of Arc, right? And Joan of Arc, although she's a foreign woman, this is another kind of interesting phenomenon at the turn of the century. When Joan of Arc, right? I'm sure you watched the films and you read the literature and so on. And in Korea, Joan of Arc was reproduced many times. And the starting point was the turn of the century again. It was in 1907 or 1908 when the first translation of Joan of Arc was made. And since then, she became an icon of a patriotic woman. Women must be patriotic, not just fighting. It's not really about, women should be encouraged to go to the battlefield and fight. It's about instigating this nationalistic passion among women. So she was a good material for women and men to be inspired by. And 신사임당, a while ago there was a TV drama with Lee Young-ae.
Yes.
Lee Young-ae was in 장금. That's her name, the actress. She was in a drama.
Yes.
Did you watch that?
I think it's also Jangin.
Yes, in Jhooyeon.
They are the same actress.
Yeah. So 장금, she was in a different
Napunta siya sa
drama.
Iran. Yung
Did
nagpipainting.
you? I guess it wasn't really popular. She played 사임당.
Ah,
Yeah.
빛의 일기.
yes.
Did you watch it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you look at the 5만 원 bill, Korean bill, there's a 신사임당.
Yes.
It's a
He was the
historical
one who-
event. The first time in Korean history a woman appears on a note, a banknote.
He was the one who painted.
Sorry, can you speak up?
In the drama, he was the one who was paint the bill. Ay,
No.
Right. basta
Okay.
he was a painter in the
Yeah,
drama.
she was a
She
painter.
was a painter, sorry.
She was a painter, and she was a talented woman.
Yes.
But in Korean history, she is remembered as a great woman because
She painted the portrait.
no, not yet. No, that's a Taegye one. There's a yellow one. No. It's a 5만 원.
I thought the mother, this is the son, right?
Yeah. No.
The mother of
I think anyway, it's here. So you have to take a look. It's here. But my point is that she became a great woman. Yeah, there's a real bill. No. Yeah, so that's the highest cash bill, right? Yeah. Yeah, largest bill. And from 10만 원 you need check. That's yeah. No, it's okay. You can show it around. Thank you so much. So again, according to my memory, we learned about 사임당 on and on again. Why? Because we never learned how talented she was. It is a really recent interpretation that she's a painter. Oh my God, really? She was a painter too? We learned about 사임당 because she produced
The portrait.
a great son, educated the son to be greater.
Paano
Mother.
na lumalabas yung role ng babae sa
Right.
hearing? And I have ambivalent feeling about this umanon. I love umanon, but I don't know about this figure. So that and the other woman, the figure is Madame Roman in during the French Revolution. She was a revolutionist and so on. So these women were reinterpreted at the turn of the 20th century when these women had to be reborn, so to speak, for nation building process to make the nation stronger. And in the minds of social elites, male elites, in order for nation to be stronger, women must be learned, right? And then with the knowledge, they should educate the children well and make their sons to be great. So this was the basic idea. Is it alien idea? Is it alien to you? Is something you're not familiar with? I'm just curious. No? Is this a Korea specific, unique to Korea?
Japan and Korea.
Sure, Japan as well. How about in this society?
Kaya lang hindi naman ganyan ka dedicated.
You don't get pressure?
Yes.
No?
Maybe
Raising
to have, but
Asia.
maybe the degree is really different from Korea's pressure on women, especially on mothers.
On mothers. And I would love to hear more about your observation later on during the Q&A or even after that. But this has been one of the most serious and problematic ideologies in modern Korea, which limited the lives of women quite much. And this was one of the reasons, right? And I am sure that most of you are familiar with the comfort women issue.
Yes.
Yes. And there are some surviving Congo women in the Philippines as well. Right? So you know about their history. And there are many things, so I don't have to explain who they are, what they did, and how this discourse has been going. But what I want to talk about today is that why it took so long for these women to come forward to talk about their experience in South Korea. In South Korea. In Joseon society, I was telling you about the, if the women talkative and they get divorced and so on, and they should remain pure and, if they have affair, divorced and so on. But one thing I didn't talk about too much was sexually pure. Women were expected to be sexually pure. Okay. That's why in Joseon, when women lose their husband, they were not encouraged to be married, especially if the women are from upper class. She was not supposed to be married. If she remarried, then it becomes disgrace for family, right? And so this is why, or this, let's say if women just got married and lose husbands by death and so on, without children, but are they allowed to marry? Not really. If she's from a good family, upper class, then she remains single until the end of her life. Right? And if she does that, the government gives her son prize, right? You did so well, and so this is called 열려상 and so on. And I don't know if you have seen some of the TV dramas that deal with the Korean ghosts. Have you seen some ghost stories? Korean ghosts. Usually they appear in a white, and with the long hairs, with blood, and they are really scary, right? It's like a Jhooyeon. Really scary. And one of the reasons why it is scary is that there were so much limitations on women, and they had to suppress their stress a lot and their sadness a lot and so on. So when they just explode, then they become ghosts. And so this is one of the reasons why they are so scary. People say it's a joke, but anyway, these were the expectations of women, and this didn't change much even after the colonial period, after the Korean War as well. During the military dictatorship, it was even more severe that the women were supposed to play a supporting role, right? And it may sound strange, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, we never received a sex education, right? And it was so primitive when it comes down to sex education that women were basically so unaware or weren't informed about anything, right? These days things changed a lot, but back then, women still learned that they were not supposed to. They were supposed to remain pure, sexually I'm talking about, right? And so on. And children of single mothers, they were discriminated against. It's not their fault, right? But again, it was really common that children of single women, they were discriminated against, right? So those, the social practices still existed. And even these days, the divorce rate is really high in Korea. And there's a tendency to blame women for divorce as well, right? So women, whatever they do, they become the blame, right? So anyway, this comfort women issue, when it comes down to the question as to why it took so long for those women to come out finally and begin to talk about their experience. There are other reasons as well, such as during the politically suppressed period, it wasn't so easy for not just the women, men too, to talk about politically sensitive issue. But at the same time, when women are quote unquote sexually became sexually impure, they become shame for families. So it's not expected that they were even talking about it, and many women decided not to come back home, right? So this was one of the reasons, and it was really, really hard for researchers. And I'm sure that you can hear more about this kind of experience from other researchers too, but according to those researchers, it was really hard for them to encourage those women to talk about their experience as well. It was only in the 90s that they started to talk about their own experience. So, oops. And this nation building process, sure, it produced a lot of problems, such as the ideology of wise mother and good wife. But at the same time, one of the byproducts of this nationalism or nation building process is to emphasize the racial purity or ethnic purity. Koreans are very Koreans. They always say "우리" and "우리나라," and then I think Professor Epstein showed us these bands as well. K-punk band and so on. There's a very strong sense of nationhood. I'm not saying that kind of nationalism is bad all the time, but at the same time, it eliminates those who are in Korean border with rights given to them, right? But by social practice, they are marginalized, such as I'm talking about migrant wives and migrant workers and mixed race children. These are serious problems. And sure, Korean women are marginalized in many ways, but these women from outside, from the Philippines, from Vietnam, and from China in particular, they are facing multiple issues in South Korea as well, right? So, how many foreigners in Korea? 1.8 million, 3.4% of population. I think that this number is bigger than 5%, bigger than Japan. In Japan, I think it's a little over 1%. The foreigners.
It's done over 2 now.
It's gone over 2. Yeah, so it's a huge number of foreigners. And then the increase happened all of a sudden. Right, all of a sudden. There are some reasons too. From 1992, South Korea and China normalized the diplomatic relationships, and then a lot of Chinese, especially Korean Chinese, came to Korea to work. There's one reason. Another reason is that because a lot of Korean parents favored sons. In Joseon society, they favor sons, right? And women decided to keep sons rather than daughters. They were able to find out the sex of their fetus, right? So I talked about Jhooyeon Kim, the novel. In her generation, in mid-30s, more men than women, right? And in rural areas, usually men stay in rural villages and look after agricultural work rather than women. Because the women tend to go to cities and their education level went up. So they are mobile. They go to cities and they can get jobs and so on. So those men who cannot marry or want to marry again, for them, inviting brides from overseas was a solution, right? So this was a time when the population of migrant brides increased. But again, this happens to my students as well. My students talk about how sweet-looking those Park Bo-gum and Song Joong-gi and Hong Yu are, and whenever Korean male students appear on campus, then they're like and they wanted to talk to this Korean students and so on. And I tried to tell them to be realistic. In reality, this is not what is happening. Not always. Good things happen in Korea. When it comes down to men, you have to be careful. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a mom. But again, I try to tell them that reality could be different. And reality is different, right? Many women who come to Korea, they have problems. And I think Professor Naomi Chi can talk more about this issue because she's researching on this. And many women I talk to, women from the Philippines, Vietnam, there are many things they experience, bad things they experience. Beating, abuse, right? And bullying, and their children get bullied in schools and so on. But more difficult thing is that it's really difficult for them to even talk about it because they don't want further marginalization by talking about it, right? At the same time, the government tried to promote this multiculturalism, Tamuna, Jhooyeon, and so on, but there are tremendous problems with the policies. But besides, talking about just the policy, I will talk about representation. When it comes down to representation of foreign wives, and I find some serious problems, such as these ones. And one biggie I think Professor Stein talked about where Jasmine Lee, did you watch this?
Yes, 네 봤어요.
How many of you watched this? How was it?
It was actually very enlightening. I came to know of the plight of multicultural families in Korea.
Really? Okay, and?
No, I didn't watch any.
I'll ask you a different question a little later on, but I continue. And these are two other things that other films became popular. These are popular films. These are not indie films. New World. Those of you who are interested in noir, this is very violent and interesting film. And there we see representations of ethnic Chinese, right? And I was really, really uncomfortable to see othering those ethnic Koreans in this film, describing them as yeonbyeon, cozy, right? They will do anything for money. And this kind of representation reappears again in 청년 경찰, where Chinese from mainland China, ethnic Koreans, they are described as violent, barbaric, right, and so on. This is a very uncomfortable notion about those Koreans. And one diggy about the multicultural family and the child. It's Jhooyeon who played a mixed race child who's in trouble all the time, right? Who has a Philippine mother and a Korean father, right? Became really, really popular. I don't know why this happened. I'm sorry, I'm going backward. Really do not know. How am I doing with time? Okay. Yeah, this I included because I wanted to show you that not always images of North Korea appear on propaganda posters. These are the kind of paintings done by North Korean refugees, kind of a satire about the North Korean society and so on. There are many cultural products produced by North Korean refugees that are quite interesting, such as this. And I put that in order to show how North Korean refugees in South Korea also represented in South Korea. 지금 만나러 갑니다. The Professor Stein talked about. There's a strong sense of creating this community and kind of inclusive atmosphere. But again, in reality, I think I see it's really uncomfortable to see sexualized representation of North Korean refugees, women, in TV shows, and it has been tremendously challenging for North Korean families to live in South Korea because Koreans discriminate North Koreans. Right? And I see that a lot of them try to settle in other countries such as Canada. And I was really, really surprised to see the increase of number of North Korean refugees in Canada over 10 years. They increased from one family to 2,000 something. And so this is another issue. But let me talk about this Wandegi. Now you watch this Wandegi. What do you think of Jasmine Lee's role?
Honestly, what really surprised me was the fact that they actually used a Filipina for the role. But I was actually thinking, would this story have been different if the race of the mother was different? I was actually thinking that maybe there are also differences in the treatments in the race. Maybe if the mother were white, would the situation have been different?
How could have been different if she were white?
Would they have been more accepted? Would there have been a warmer reception of their family, or would would he have had? Because at first he didn't really like when he actually learned that his mother was Filipina, but what had he learned, or had his mother been white, American from Europe or from America, would his reaction have been different? Would he have accepted her faster? Would he have been warmer to his mother right away?
She was in the film called Antiki, right? I don't know about you, but I didn't quite like the way she was depicted in the movie, because there is a kind of stereotype this Korean media is creating that women from Southeast Asia somehow they all resemble in their fashion, right? And so on. And she was exaggerating Korean language, when in fact she is very fluent in Korean, trying to show that she is just a sacrificing mother, which is not really true, right? The women, they have their own goals and desire too, right? They're pursuing, and the movie just doesn't show that so much. You can discuss that more later. So this is Jasmine Lee, right? And she became more like a celebrity in South Korea, and when she became 국회의원, the representative of the parliament, it was a big deal. It's the first foreigner in Korean history who became a lawmaker, right? Is she still the representative? I'm not sure. Yeah. But what is a problem is that this shows what she has been doing, what she wants to do. But Korean popular media has been talking about what she hasn't been doing when she was supposed to do, and how disqualified she is because she's a foreigner woman, and so on and on and on and on. And this kind of same representation you don't see with white men who came to Korea and who became even some kind of minister, right? 관광, Incham, he became a minister, right? He changed his name just like Jasmine, but right, he got the citizenship, and I think that he was involved in some kind of dishonorable act, but then media doesn't talk about it. If same thing happens to Jasmine Lee, and I'm sure that the media could have been furious about how wrong she was. And this kind of, and also there's a gender dimension, right? Because she's a woman too, right? This has been a serious problem with if such a thing exists, multiculturalism in South Korea, where they looked at those migrant wives as objects to be disintegrated, assimilated, without really giving the recognition of the culture she's from. Other than the fact that she's from the Philippines, I do not see anything, any cultural signs about her being there as a person who's from the Philippines. Right? It doesn't matter whether she's from the Philippines or from Vietnam or elsewhere, right? So there's always this idea of assimilation, right, overriding in these films. This has been a serious issue. And I have many other things that I would love to talk about, but seems like we don't have much time. But since Professor Epstein talked about masculinity and femininity in popular culture, let me briefly talk about this 애교 and 오빠, right? What is 애교? Can someone do 애교? That's 애교. Are you familiar with this? Ayo is doing cute things, right? For expecting what? To have some a favor, to receive a favor, right? Usually women do, young women, you know, older women don't really do. If they do it, they'll be rejected right away. What are you doing? If I do it, it's not ego. It's oh my god, it's grotesque. But if young women do, oh my god, they're so lovely, right? It's age discrimination, I should say. Besides gender discrimination. But anyway, this ego. A lot of people telling me that, well, this kind of cuteness you see in Hallyu is very different from, you know, sexiness you see in American popular culture, and they tend to like this kind of cuteness, right? In South Korea, I think cuteness is like by elderly, no, not elderly, women, men like cute women, like IU. Ajashi fans and so on. But anyway, I think men and women both. But at the same time, I think you know, usually you see this aegyo. Women do aegyo thing before men, right? And how do we interpret this? And Korean culture is very overseas. At least in Israel, you know, women appear cute. This kind of cuteness is a kind of signature of Hallyu. And I've been thinking, you know, why these kind of things happening. And they tend to do aegyo before oppa. Oppa is someone who's a senior to you, older brother, right? Oppa in Gangnam Style. Oppa. Oppa, right? So even when I say oppa, it's a little strange, but you know, when young women say to older men oppa and doing cute things, right? This is considered kind of cute things, but at the same time, I'm thinking about this oppa culture and ego culture in terms of kind of create an environment where competition, fierce competition exists, not among men and women, among women as well. Right? As I showed you the statistics and some of the social practices, it is extremely difficult for women to maintain their position, right? And this kind of oppa culture, ego culture, is something that women, in defensively or in an attempt to actively seeking favor from elderly men who usually hold power at work and in family, right? So I wanted to talk about this by showing you some of the video clip, but I don't have much time to do that. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, we can talk about this during the Q&A, but the last thing I wanted to talk about is the cosmetic surgeries again. And so if you're interested, there are a lot of sources by, you know, I'll provide you source, but some researchers will argue that you know, South Korea is known for a republic of cosmetic surgeries. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it true that Korea is a place where many numbers of large numbers of people do cosmetic surgeries? How about in the Philippines?
Before Korea gained prominence on this, it was Thailand. In Southeast Asia, Filipinos or Malaysians or even Indonesians go to Thailand for cosmetic surgery. But the quality of cosmetic surgery in Korea was better than that of Thailand, although it was more expensive. And so it became very popular to Chinese women, Japanese women,
went to Korea, and the people from Southeast Asia, those who can afford, saved enough to be able to go to Korea for their cosmetic surgery. So the one in Thailand, that business started, but it's still there. It's still there.
Is it becoming popular in the Philippines at all?
Well, as long as Filipinos can afford it.
Because I see some kind of weird scenes in Myeongdong. Have you been to Myeongdong in Seoul? Myeongdong in Seoul. And I saw a group of women with the bandages on in Uniqlo. Uniqlo. It's not a hospital. I saw one woman shopping with the bandages on. And I was wondering, maybe she's hospitalized for injury or something. And then later on, another woman joined, and she also had bandages on. And with the shopping bags. And another woman, This is five or six of them. They got together with the bandages on, with the shopping bags in their hands. I was thinking, how can you do this? And then someone told me, it's a cosmetic surgery tour. So they cannot wait until their the surgery wounds to be healed, but they need to do shopping at the same time. So they just go out together, right? If you do it with other people, you don't feel so much shame, You do the shopping together. So there is a cosmetic tourism as well, but at the same time, do I have 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever? 5 minutes. Maybe I show you just a few minutes. As you will see, media, the most popular or conventional representation of women doing surgery in South Korea has to do with the women try to overperform their look, capitalize their body, right, to gain favor in the society, which is fiercely competitive. I want you to think about this, whether this is the case, right? You heard a lot of stories, right, about cosmetic surgery. I'm sure you heard about them. Something went wrong or something went well, right? There are many cases, unfortunate cases, where women the surgeries didn't go well, and in extreme cases they died, right? So there are some scary cases. I didn't realize that the time will fly this quickly. So I have other things that I wanted to talk about. I couldn't talk about. Can I have the slide on? Is it okay? The last page. And so I tried to show you that some of those current issues, we see from these married women with a child and children having problem with their career and family relations, to these cosmetic surgeries and aegyo culture, right? And all those things have multiple reasons, and tradition, such as Confucianism, is not always the cause to be blamed. That you need to look at the social context, historical context, right? And you cannot really apply feminist theory or feminism into certain society all the same, because eventually this is good for women. You cannot really say that, because every society has a different way of developing, right, their idea about women, and every society has different social practices, right? One good example, considering the fact that I've been in Israel for the last 4 years, women who wear scarf, right? In the Muslim countries, right? You know this? In Palestinians do that too, in the Middle East, and people do that too. In the West, feminists would attack, seem to attack that wearing that itself is a sign of oppression, and the women in their society must get rid of it, and so on. And Quebec has the law, so the women can now wear that in public. But again, for women in their society, wearing the scarf means that they are preserving their identity as well, right? Not just the religious identity, their cultural identity. And by wearing that, it doesn't mean that they lose their stance as a feminist. Sometimes it is helpful to show that they are not disintegrating the society as men worry about. They are in fact contributing to the society by showing that they are the one, right, in unity. And wearing scarf means that they are part of the nation. So they are not losing their national identity while they are asserting their feminist stance, right? This is just the example. So I wanted to show you that cosmetic surgery, something like this, I would love to hear from you, first of all, what you think about this, and from there we can discuss further. What is your reaction after watching this? I'm just curious. Ooh, yay, or grand plastic surgery? That is a good one. And you're hoping that you don't run into your friend there. What is your reaction? Men.
Everybody wanted to look good. They wanted to be comfortable among their peers. It seems to be that, I call it, it's becoming a fad, F-A-D. It's not really that they really did. It seems to be that.
Actually, what do you think?
She says, oh, my friends, and the others are doing it, why not? No, why can't I try? Well,
Would you allow your daughter to?
I don't know.
How about your son?
But I don't believe in that.
You don't believe in what?
The Lord gave us this, we might as well take it. Live with it.
Live with it.
Yes.
My mom said to me. Because I belong to a generation where we were not supposed to do anything to their bodies, right? And especially in Korea, you don't harm your bodies because your body is given by your parents and your ancestors. Not just the parents, your ancestors that give you the body. So you can't really do anything. Tattoo, oh my God, no. But things changed a lot these days. Other reactions? What do you think? Yes.
I'm curious if these people really experience genuine happiness after undergoing plastic surgery. I got curious if these people after getting plastic surgery be interviewed, like after experiencing that, after 5 years, after 10 years. So did it really make you happy, genuinely happy?
That's a really important question. Good question. Would you like to say something, Professor Stein? Yes.
There's a lot to say.
Yeah.
Seeing the one-on-one, there's also the issue of how the West depicts these.
Yes.
It's an issue that people outside of Korea. And this question about personal happiness, that I think in most cases it's not so much about self-esteem, but it has hinted at. It's about competitiveness within the job market. It's seen as an investment in yourself. What I find most disturbing about this, it relates to quickly changing beauty trends that have permanent effects on the body, and there's a larger level of coercion in society that fosters an industry that's asset. It's never risky. And it's also subjective. Speaking personally,
Yes.
I'll say the thing that bothers me about it is this PhD, which is changing away from my own personal views. 30 years ago, I would have said I thought there could be women in the world. I no longer think that now. The other problem
Are they different now?
is that they had, there's a tendency to efface individuality in the favor of a clone look, which is a clone look. And that person don't find terribly. So it's weird to me that people like my niece, for instance, getting a certain down. Why are you doing this? Because it's not risky. You're spending a lot of money and you better afford it. So
That's a really important point, and the good point you both raised is that the It's kind of just a few seconds. Usually these types of videos are made by foreign media. Foreign media, and you're right. As you can guess well, towards the end of this video, it shows how badly the surgeries went and how unhappy those women are. And this is usually the case, it's a narrative. It's not like, oh my God, I became thin and I got a job and I have a boyfriend, I got married, and you don't see those things so much. This is a kind of narrative. It's a kind of a reflection of the West, of this the idea of cosmetic surgery. And I just said some other words that are more critical, but I think that was the case. Yes, Professor Malcolm.
I just wanted to reinforce it's more about competitiveness. I want to reinforce the point that it's more about competitiveness than it is about vanity. And to do that, I'll give the example of Korean parents who do such things as have surgeries performed on the tongues of their children in hopes that their children will be able to learn English better.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to reveal so much of a generation difference, but my mom, in Korean society, for some reason, they're so comfortable talking about other people's bodily faults, right? Oh, you got fat, right? My mom would say something like that. And she would say, well, I tease her sometimes. Do you think that you'll be happier that I will go for surgeries, fix my nose and fix my eyes and do a liposuction and so on? And she said, you wanna die? She's gonna kill me. She's gonna kill me. No, she's gonna basically kill me. She won't allow me to do. She'll complain. But parents these days, they give away cosmetic surgery as a gift to their children. So easily. They don't even pause for a second. Is it morally right or wrong or whatever? Why not? Give it to her, right? This amazes me how things changed a lot. And I do not mean to demoralize their decision. I know where that is from. But again, there's so much change happened. And I do not want to see it as a deracializing as well, because Western media seems to emphasize, talk about or create something like deracializing Asian body, and I do not think this is the case. I think what you were talking about was really interesting, that Korean body. It became popular in Southeast Asia and Asia and so on, right? So, and yes. I think in the back, I think she is. You don't have to talk about cosmetic surgeries alone, you can talk about other things as well. Yes. I think yeah, she raised that. But you go ahead first, Professor.
Yeah, just to go on to something else about really radical changes and surprising changes. I thought you were going to talk about it, maybe you didn't, I missed it, because you referred to some preference. But again, things that I could not have seen coming that have occurred is the sudden and very pronounced shift after centuries, millennia, son preference to daughter preference in South Korea. And I just wanted to know if you wanted to comment on what you see is going on.
My sister has 2 daughters. My father has 1 daughter, no sons, and they are completely happy. And this couldn't have happened even 20 years ago, right? And I was thinking about how this became so natural that they are so proud to have daughters and become 달바보, right? They have parents, one. And I don't have a clear answer, but I think it has to do with, again, economic situation, where the fertility rate is low because people do not get married. Why people do not get married? Because it's already difficult to support herself or himself. right? And it will be extremely difficult to support a child properly. So they can make the child competitive and survive in that competitive environment later on. So having 2 children is unimaginable for many, many families. So these days, it doesn't matter whether it's a son or a daughter, right? They've gone through a time when both. I talked about women a lot today, but I didn't talk too much about men. When it comes down to the job market these days in Korea, men also have tremendous difficulty.